Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. If you're like me, as I walk, I ponder many questions. I like to consider what could be, what role could I play, how could I actually contribute. I like to observe, I like to think deeply. And in these days, a few questions have kept recurring over the last few days. I was asking myself, am I wrong to still think the best of Muslim rulers, religious leaders, and those who swore to protect us? Am I misplaced? Am I really misplaced in my thinking that there is some good somewhere in these rulers and the religious and military leaders? Do they really have the will to do anything? It's really important to understand how you also feel, and I would like to know if you feel they can still be changed, influenced, or corrected. Let me be very clear. I am neither here asking about their iman in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, nor challenging their personal intentions, their niyyah. My own perspective is that we challenge people on their actions. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, وَقُلْ اعْمَلُوا فَسَيَرَى اللَّهُ عَمَلَكُمْ وَرَسُولُهُ وَالْمُؤْمِنُونَ وَسَتُرَدُّونَ إِلَى عَالِمِ الْغَيْبِ وَالشَّهَادَةِ فَيُنَبِّئُكُم بِمَا كُنتُمْ تَعْمَلُونَ. In Surah At-Tawbah, in verse 105, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, do as you will, for Allah will see your deeds, and so will His Messenger and the believers, and you will be returned to the knower of the unseen and the witnessed, and He will inform you of what you used to do. This is the same principle I would apply to myself, and I hope that you all apply to yourselves. George Bush famously said, "You're either with us or against us," and publicly called his war on terror a crusade. In the same regard, in the same manner, Netanyahu wrote publicly in the Wall Street Journal supporting his war rationale that this is a war for civilization, calling it a war against the barbarians who must be eliminated. This Kafir Western alliance that has been amassed against us is the Ahzab of our generation. And it is exactly that. And we know what Rasulullah ﷺ did when the Ahzab came. He not only lifted his hands up in supplication and dua to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, but he dug the trench. He collected the troops. He collected the Sahaba. He prepared the guarding posts in the different corners of Medina. This alliance is of all of those, this alliance of Ahzab that has been amassed against the people of Gaza, against Muslims, and against all of us as Muslims, is an alliance of those that believe, support, and subscribe to the liberal beliefs and values. Their entire existence since the 16th century is to dismantle and destroy the Islamic way of life, to subjugate the people of Islam, to ensure that we as Muslims will never revive again on the basis of the idea of La ilaha illallah Muhammad Rasulullah. And everything they have done since then is for that singular purpose. We as Muslims are their property. We are not to be liberated or allowed to revive. They live by a singular rule of economic interests. That is their only value. All other aspects that they claim as values are mere makeup. International law, humanitarian law, Geneva Convention are all mere makeup and decor to make their aqidah humanly palatable. The genocide is deliberate, calculated and rational in their aqidah of white supremacy and settler colonialism. The whole concept of land without people for people without land, if you really understand the meaning of these words from their colonialist viewpoint, then it means that we have no right, no claim to Palestine. Actually, we don't exist on that land from a human perspective. Actually, what it means also is that the people of Palestine are the equivalent to the Aborigines of Australia, the Indians of North America, and the Africans in Southern Africa, etc. Exterminate the brutes. That's what they believe in. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, يا أيها الذين آمنوا لا تتخذوا بطانة من دونكم لا يألونكم خبالا ودوا ما عنتم قد بدت البغضاء من أفواههم وما تخفي صدورهم أكبر قد بينا لكم الآيات إن كنتم تعقلون. O you who have believed, do not take as intimates those other than yourselves, for they will not spare you any ruin. They wish you would have hardship. Hatred has already appeared from their mouths, and what their breasts conceal is greater. We have certainly made clear to you the signs if you will use reason. If you will use reason. Think, comprehend, contemplate. So where do the Muslim rulers and leaders sit, stand, or hide at this time? At the most important moment for the Ummah. My eyes and all your eyes were focused on Riyadh for the joint Arab Islamic Leaders Summit. Wow, I thought to myself, will we see the promised actions of bin Salman, Ibrahim Raisi of Iran, and Erdogan? I spent 4 hours listening in hope and expectation that the demonstrations by our brothers and sisters all over the Muslim lands, the anguish shown by our brothers and sisters towards their Muslim brothers and sisters in Palestine and in West Bank and in Gaza, the demands for action and cries for help, would they be heeded? Would they be answered? I don't know about you, but as an educator in strategic and transformational leadership, all what I heard was begging, groveling, and beseeching, not Allah, but the international community, the UN Security Council, and the humanitarian instincts of Western peoples. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, إن الذين ارتدوا على أدبارهم من بعد ما تبين لهم الهدى الشيطان سول لهم وأملى لهم ذلك بأنهم قالوا للذين كرهوا ما نزل الله سنطيعكم في بعض الأمر والله يعلم إسرارهم. Indeed, those who reverted back to disbelief after guidance had become clear to them. Satan enticed them and prolonged hope for them. That is because they said to those who disliked what Allah sent down, we will obey you in part of the matter, and Allah knows what they conceal. As leaders, they abdicated their obligations and responsibilities and duties. A leader must be responsive to the demands of the people who have entrusted him to lead. They must lead using a radar system and a compass. The compass being the idea of La ilaha illallah Muhammadan Rasulullah. A leader is the one that builds capability, resilience, accountability, and collectiveness based on the shared and adopted idea of La ilaha illallah Muhammadan Rasulullah. A leader is not one individual but many individuals who choose a singular person to whom they pledge the authority to lead by the idea. This leader radiates the values they believe in, a radiance that manifests heat and strength and energy. If one of them loses any of this heat or energy or strength, they return to the values to draw from them. And if he loses all the heat, there is no treatment but to treat the faith, the belief, the aqidah. Otherwise, he will fail and perhaps die, and the whole collectiveness around him and collective around him will fall and die. Like what happened with the fall of the last Uthmani Khilafah in 1923. The most distinguishing part of a leader is his ability to proliferate in the people he leads high values that deserve dedication and sacrifice from those who embrace them. And if these values are eternal facts, the leadership of the group that embraces them will have strong, deep lungs, be able to take the long view, and will be long lived, insofar as the whole collective continues to believe in the values that emanate from the idea of La ilaha illallah Muhammadur Rasulullah. True transformational leadership is not an individual who makes history, and it is not individuals who are made by history. Rather, true transformational leadership is an idea that shines in the minds of a people or a nation who try to express it. Adopting this leadership approach will give rise to true transformational leadership, as it expresses itself through the many individuals who adopt it and becomes the foundation and the basis for revival. Finally, true leadership is not pragmatic or Machiavellian. Rather, it is governing, guiding, and managing the affairs of people in a manner connected to the correct life for society and is characterized by vitality, meaning that the ideas that are undertaken or worked towards or working with them must be implemented on a sensed reality that people sense, and it is actually ongoing among them, and then they will visualize it and touch it with their fingers, and they yield to it, and thus leadership will be alive. We have to sense these values. We look at the people in Gaza today, and we can sense the values manifested in them, in their sabr, in their thabat, in their tadhiyah and sacrifice. There is no surprise to me, and I hope not to you, in the positions of this ruling clique that represents the real defense force for the usurping entity. May Allah curse them. Throughout their dark history of betrayal and conspiracy, they have only produced disappointment and letdown, which infuriates Muslims and fills their hearts with resentment. But we should not allow the letdowns and resentment force us to immediately and expediently think what to do. No, we should think deeply, as I mentioned in the previous post, about the root causes and the root cause solution. Let me give you an example. In amongst all of this, the Saudi Minister of Investment, Khalid Al-Falih, said at the Bloomberg New Economy Forum on November 8th, amid all the massacres, genocide by the cursed Ghasib, and the cutting of electricity, water and medicine, the starving of the people of Gaza, leaving infants to die in their incubators in hospitals. He said that the normalization file is on the table, and the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia will continue its attempts to normalize diplomatic relations with Israel. This is who they are. They are nothing but those who have adopted the same liberal value of economic interests. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, يا أيها الذين آمنوا لا تخونوا الله والرسول وتخونوا أماناتكم وأنتم تعلمون. O you who have believed, do not betray Allah and the Messenger, or betray your trusts while you know the consequences. And we are witnessing the consequences and can see them every day. We have to return to true leadership, a leadership that's there for Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and His Messenger, not for interests, and not for cliques, and not for centers of power. جزاكم الله خير وبارك الله فيكم.